The Golden Bachelor hometowns are quickly approaching and Gerry has important decisions to make. Hey everyone, this is Hippoberry and welcome back to Shared News. Today we will be breaking down the latest episode of The Golden Bachelor, but before we begin, please make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any news updates. The episode starts with the women having a pool kumbaya. Leslie said she feels good and had an amazing one-on-one last week and is crazy about Gerry. Ellen says her connection is more than she can imagine. She cannot wait to learn more about Gerry. However, on the other hand, Faith says she feels insecure that she hasn't gotten any more time with Gerry with hometowns quickly approaching. She says it feels tumultuous in her stomach right now. The women were feeling the pressure of 3 being eliminated this week. The host Jesse speaks to the women and reminds them 3 will be introducing Gerry to their families. Jesse teases there will be a once-in-a-lifetime magical one-on-one date and a group date to come. The women are stressed. They open the letter and the one-on-one date went to Faith, who screamed and threw her pillow up in the air. She was so excited. The letter said she makes Gerry's heart soar. Faith says it's been a crazy time and feels like she is dreaming. She is also thrilled and scared that he could break her heart. Gerry says it is a critical week. Each rose this week means he will meet their families, which is pivotal. He's excited for his one-on-one date with Faith. She is vivacious and exciting, always smiling. He thinks she has a lot going for her. He knows Faith has feelings, but he needs to know if it will continue to blossom. He thinks Faith is a big question mark. Gerry picks up Faith and they hit the highway and drive up to a helicopter. Faith says she is adventurous, but she is afraid of heights. Gerry says he's got her and she will conquer her fear today. Faith says there is a sense of calm and peacefulness when she is with Gerry. They take off in the helicopter and fly over the mansion. The ladies are still in the pool and chilling and see the helicopter up in the sky and wave to it. They are still very supportive of each other. Leslie said it's been a little upsetting since he saved this once-in-a-lifetime date for Faith, but not her. Faith says they are literally on cloud 9 as they fly over downtown LA, the Hollywood sign in the helicopter. She is in heaven. She says Gerry makes her feel special and cared about. They end up landing on a yacht in the middle of the water. It kind of reminded me of this cool James Bond moment. Golden Bachelor continues to show us they have a budget. Gerry says it was a magical moment and the two have so much fun. Gerry says those were priceless moments with Faith. Gerry and Faith make out while they cheers glasses of champagne, and Gerry says nothing could be better than what he is experiencing right now. Back at the mansion, Leslie is going through it, poor thing. She says it's been rough. She said watching Faith and Gerry leave on the special date has brought up a lot of emotions. Her past relationships have not been secure and it's been hard. Now back to the magical date. Faith asks herself, can this be something real and can they create a life together? There are things about each other they don't know yet. She tells Gerry from the first day they had a connection, and Gerry says it's the warm, soft look in her eyes. Gerry says she has musical talent, the motorcycle, and can sing. Faith responds that she has had a hard childhood and it's what soothes her soul. She grew up in a non-traditional house and spent a lot of time alone. She didn't have parents and childhood trauma made her think she was not whole. Faith is happy at how far she has come. Because she has had so much dysfunction in her life, she has chosen men that were not as emotionally healthy. Gerry brings something she has never experienced and that's what makes it special. Gerry wants to have the deep emotional attachment and know they have each other's backs. Faith wants to believe it but says it's risky and scary. Things she has shared in a vulnerable state has been thrown back in her face. Gerry says it will never happen with him. Gerry says, like the helicopter, you just have to lean in and give into it. That's all you gotta do. Gerry admits he felt guilty in the beginning because he was attracted by her physicality. After today, he is intrigued by her as a person. Gerry hands the rose to Faith and says she is as beautiful as this rose. She gladly accepts, which means she is going to hometowns. Faith says it was like a fairy tale she can't describe. She is head over heels and is falling in love with Gerry. They make out in the hot tub and Gerry says Faith could be the one. A very big statement. After the one-on-one date, Faith returns back to the mansion and the ladies want to know immediately how it went and what they did. Faith was a little hesitant on sharing and you could see it on Leslie's face how uncomfortable she was, and there was a little bit of jealousy, and this is where the pettiness started to begin. In her confessional, Ellen says not to share those details because Faith is not that special. The camera kept panning to Leslie's face and you can tell she was trying to keep it together big time as Faith divulged all the date details. Ellen is going to fight for the 2 roses left for hometowns. The day of the final group date comes and the location is the Santa Monica Pier. Gerry says he wants the women's inner child to come out. Leslie runs over and gives Gerry a big hug. This is the last time Gerry will have before hometowns. They all play a bunch of carnival games like whack-a-mole. Susan loves the date idea since she hasn't done something like this since she was a teenager. She says it feels great to not be serious and just have fun. Sandra says playing ring toss and eating cotton candy was a great time. Ellen loves all the games and the stuffed animals. They're all competing for his heart. She has been feeling like a kid for the last couple of weeks. Teresa also felt like a kid. She says it's been an incredible journey so far, a roller coaster ride of emotions, no pun intended. Teresa wants to tell Gerry she is falling in love with him tonight. The only other person she has expressed her love for was her husband 52 years ago. Teresa and Gerry go off to the side to chat. She tells him she's having a wonderful time and doesn't go on roller coasters often, but Gerry made her feel comfortable. It feels so right for her. She says it would mean the world for Gerry to meet her family during hometowns. Gerry says they have had a connection from the first one-on-one. Teresa says she feels like she can't live without Gerry. Gerry says it's so nice of her to say that. Teresa says she is falling in love with him and that they could work. Gerry says and agrees that they could work as well. They have so much in common and is touched by the things she said. Teresa says she would go on any roller coaster with Gerry. They both share a kiss, and Teresa noticed Gerry didn't say it back, but it felt like he felt the same way. She says it will be worth the wait when Gerry says he loves her back. Gerry says she makes him feel special. He has strong feelings for her and says she is the picture of safety and security. Sandra and Gerry chat, and she says she has been single for 29 years. She wants to expand her families. She wants to expand her daughter's family with Gerry's family. Gerry says the women brought so many qualities that were fun. They had openness and authenticity. Gerry and Leslie chat, and Gerry jokes he has a few bruises still from their one-on-one date. Leslie tells him how much she enjoyed that date. Gerry thinks they had a nice progression. Leslie mentions how difficult it has been to see Faith going on that one-on-one date with Gerry. It brings up past feelings from other relationships because she has been cheated on. Gerry says it hits home. These are feelings she had because she wasn't chosen. She gets emotional and Gerry comforts her, saying it's okay. Leslie says her feelings are foreign because she hasn't felt that way in a really long time. After their first date, she was crazy about him. Gerry says he felt such a joy during their one-on-one. He felt protective. Leslie said it was the most amazing thing when Gerry was concerned about her safety on the four-wheelers. Gerry says he makes her feel so amazing. She is happy when she is with Gerry. She is falling in love with him. Gerry says she is his girl. Now back to the other girls. Ellen says she feels nauseous looking at that rose sitting on the table. She is falling in love with him and her heart can be broken tonight. She is scared. Ellen and Gerry have their moment and ride a roller coaster together. Ellen feels tremendous emotions and is falling in love with him. She hopes he feels strongly as she does. She tells Gerry she has never felt someone as parallel as her with characters, values, and family. She feels like it is a team and she cannot wait to be a teammate with him. Gerry says he has had strong feelings, especially during the hot air balloon date. Ellen says she's falling head over heels and would love for her best friend and kids to meet him. Gerry is so touched to hear that and feels it so much. Ellen said the convo made her feel secure but afraid. She hasn't found someone like this in in 7 to 8 years. She gets emotional as it is wonderful but scary. At the end of the date, Gerry says at the bottom of his heart he wants to tell the women how much he appreciates the joy the evening brought. He appreciates each of them. He takes the rose and says this will affect so many lives and sits on his chest like a heavy weight. He said he can't do this and puts the rose back on the table. He says he needs an extra day for some clarity and he will give out the roses tomorrow night. Tomorrow night approaches and the women file into the room for the rose ceremony. Teresa feels very nervous and knows the strong connections Gerry has. She is concerned. Ellen feels confident but apprehensive. She poured her heart out, but was that enough? Gerry walks in and says the ladies look beautiful. He mentions how he was not ready to give out a rose last night. He shares the importance of the roses and had a sleepless night. He is holding their hearts in his hands and it is the most important step he can possibly take. He gives the first rose to Leslie and you can see the instant relief on her face. The final rose is given to Teresa, which means Ellen, Susan, and Sandra are eliminated. I personally was not surprised at this decision. We barely got any screen time with Sandra and Susan. It was obvious to me their connection with Gerry was not as strong as some of the other ladies. Sandra and Susan had such bubbly personalities and were a fun watch, but unfortunately that was not enough. Ellen's connection was stronger than Susan and Sandra's, but not as much as Teresa and Faith's in my opinion. Ellen was quite surprised and the ladies hug each other. Gerry decides to walk Ellen out. They sit down for a quick little chat. Gerry tells her this was the most difficult decision. She put herself out there and was vulnerable. Ellen starts crying and Gerry says he hopes she stays positive. Didn't seem like Ellen wanted to hear any more as she got up to walk to the car. In the car ride, she later tells us that it was a shock and she thought he was the one. However, she says this has been one of the best experiences in her life and has a new optimism for love. She says Gerry is a special guy and deserves to be happy. Now, in next week's promo, Gerry is headed to hometowns. We see him meeting some of the grandkids of the women. We hear Leslie say Gerry fits in with her family extremely well. Gerry is grilled as we see some of the family members getting emotional and some giving their approval. Gerry says he has shared many moments with the family. Later on, Gerry says he is in an impossible situation and is in love with 3 women. He says he doesn't know how he will decide and is dying inside. There is a scene where he has to step away from the rose ceremony and has an emotional breakdown. You can tell everything, the emotions are all catching up to him because we are down to the wire. Another great episode of this week's The Golden Bachelor with another big cliffhanger. Let us know what your guys' reactions are to the episode below. Did Ellen deserve to go home? But before we go, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on any news updates. As always, I'm your host, Hibba Berry. Thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you next time.